Hey everybody, how's it going? Manny here from Skretas Family Cymbals. Hope everything's going well with you. It's going all right with me, about as good as it can be going. For this video today, I just wanted to briefly talk about the notes that I took in my little notepad here when creating a couple of my tribute cymbals. So I would listen to the records of whatever it was that I was trying to replicate and just take down my thoughts in those moments and try to be as detailed as possible about the kind of sound that we were going after. So I'm just going to briefly go through a couple of these, and hopefully it'll be somewhat insightful as to, you know, the kind of things that you can think about if you're trying to buy a cymbal and you're, you know, sometimes it's tough to articulate sound in words, just like I'm having trouble articulating any words at all here at 8:30 in the morning. But yeah, you know what I mean. I think it's when it comes to describing the sound of a cymbal, sometimes the words fall short. It's really tough to be able to accurately describe what you're hearing. So hopefully this can help out with that. And for the makers in the group, it can also give you an insight into the kind of things that you can listen for, and you know where to look at the big picture, where to dive into the small minutia of the sound. So let's see what I got written down. Let's see if any of it makes sense. So the first notes I took here were for my Roy Haynes It's Time tribute, the Jackie McLean album, It's Time. So I'll just go down from the top. It says, a hard, bright stick, but not too brittle. A dry, cool wash, not too warm or too harsh, so it's not, you know, too soft or too hard on the playing surface that would create those two extremes, kind of sitting somewhere in the middle. The rivets around the cymbal in a circle, not clustered. A soft sizzle integrated into the wash. That's the sound that I was looking for when deciding where to put the rivets all around. If you cluster the rivets like in a little trio or something, the rivets tend to sit on top of the wash rather than integrating into it. So that's what we were going for there. There's going to be light, chimey, or gongy tones to the cymbal. That tells me that there's a high curvature, a lot of profile to the cymbal. And this one here, this was just for me. It says, similar to the 18-inch K I had from the guy in Greece. So I bought an old K, 18-inch old K from a guy in Greece that was really tight, really high profile, kind of medium lightweight, and the way the stick reacted on it was sort of what I was looking for in this. This one here is important. Not too heavy, but very stiff. So I didn't, you know, the cymbal that I made, it's a 20-inch, and I think it ended up being around 2175 grams, something like that. So it's a medium weight for a 20-inch, medium, kind of just barely bordering maybe on medium light. But it's a very strong cymbal in every way, so that you get the warmth of the tones that you get from a thinner cymbal, but there's no sacrifice in the brightness of the stick definition. And here it says no softness, and it said build profile inside out. So the way that I am able to achieve a cymbal that's hard on the surface, so it kind of throws the stick back at you and you don't get any of those kind of weird barking tones, is that I build the cymbal from the bell outwards and overlay that area up by the bell many times. Something that Dave has shown in some of his tutorials, and something that he teaches people when he comes by, and that was a huge thing for me. It's really, really kind of transformed the way I make a cymbal. This here is large hammer marks for a light trash sound. Now that I didn't end up doing on this cymbal, because the profile shape and the kind of hardness of the surface accomplished that for me, being a totally hand-hammered cymbal. So you're gonna get a little bit of a trashy tone, you know, every time. And the last note for this cymbal is sounds like what K-Cons wanted to be. That's just a little note for myself. You know, I think this is kind of the tone that K. Constantinobles were going for if they were fully handmade. That's just, you can make of that what you want, because there's a lot of variety in the K. Con line, but they all have this certain something that ties them together. So yeah, there's lots of stuff in there, and the important thing to remember is that a lot of these things can be accomplished by different means. So a hard, bright stick, that can be accomplished by weight, or by stiffness, or by really, really deep, heavy hammering. You can use, pin lathing can bring out a brighter stick. So it all depends on what other aspects of the cymbal you have that are trying to go along with that. So a hard, bright stick and a dry, cool wash. That tells me that I don't want too much topography on the cymbal, because I don't want it to get too trashy and start to sound harsh, because I want it to be dry and kind of and cool sounding, like I wrote there. But dry and cool can sometimes come with softness as well. So you want to balance that out and make sure that you're not going too far in either direction, so you maintain aspects of both sides of that. But yeah, I think the rest of the stuff I kind of explained it pretty well for the rest of it. So there's a couple more here. I'm not going to spend quite as much time on that on these ones, just because it's the same kind of way that my mind works. So I explained the first one. I'll just list out what I wrote for the other ones. So for my Billy Higgins tribute, it's kind of modeled after a Formula 602. So you can kind of see the direction I was going with that one. The most important note for this cymbal to get the right sound was soft but heavy. So it's a little bit of a heavier cymbal, but I didn't want that hard, bright surface on this cymbal the same way that I did on the Roy Haynes. So it's a different way to achieve brightness through two very different cymbals, because I still want to get a bright, present stick, but there's one way, and then there's many other ways to do that. 6 to 8 rivets. I went with 6 on that one just because it felt right. Medium large unhammered bell. So the bell is as heavy as I could get it. I only do one pass on the lathe up to the bell, and there's no hammering on it, just to get that clean, kind of untampered with tone. No heavy hammering. Wanted to keep it nice and smooth like the 602. And here I wrote, because I made a Kenny Clark cymbal, I wrote Kenny Clark build, but softer without the deep grooves. So the Kenny Clark cymbal, I used the sharp lathe bit to get those really, really deep pointed grooves in there. But with the Billy Higgins, I still did a pin pass, but I did it with my rounded lathe bit, just to give it a little bit less of a harsh spread on the stick. So yeah, there's 2 more in here. This is a Jeff Hamilton swish that I made for a customer, but I'm going to be making a couple of those for stock soon. And that one is good because we have the actual model. It's not a vintage cymbal that we're going for. We have various models of Jeff Hamilton swishes that he's used over the years that we can kind of compare the similarities to them. 3 to 4 inch lip, build china from the bell outwards using the flip and overlay method, which is a method I call double raising now. And anyone who's spoken with Dave knows about raising, when you're hammering onto the curved surface to grow it outwards this way. So for double raising, what I do is I take the top, hammer it up on top, and then I flip the cymbal inside out to hammer the bottom, so I'm also raising on the bottom. Gives more warmth to the tone, but still you're growing the cymbal in both directions. So you get the benefits of hammering on both sides of the cymbal, which is kind of a warm kind of looseness to the sound, doesn't get too harsh, but you still get the strength of raising, which is one of my favorite ways to make a cymbal. I make most of my traditional series cymbals with that. Modified ML bell, media cymbals, they have the Mel Lewis ML bell, so I modify that just by putting a couple rings on the inside to make it less pointy and more round. About 2,200 grams. And this one is to continue the hammering all the way down to the edge before making the lip, to make sure that when you hammer in the lip, it doesn't twist the cymbal and make all these crazy crazy shapes that you have to work with after. Because once you've created the lip of a china, it can be very difficult. There's not a lot of room there to create that upward curvature the way you want. So it's important. So the last one, make sure it's the last one. Yeah. So the last one here is the Art Taylor tribute that I did. And what was good for me is that there were a couple of videos of him playing his cymbals up on the internet, but this 20-inch cymbal that I have here, I've heard from many people that that's kind of that Art Taylor sound. So I use the cymbal that luckily I have as kind of a benchmark for the shape and all that other stuff. So I was using the record All Day Long by Donald Byrd and Kenny Burrell, which I recommend. It's fantastic. 20-inch old case style, similar to my new stamp, like I just pointed out. Thin and stiff was a big part of that. And there's a little bit, just a tiny little bit of give to the stick sound that kind of activates the rest of the cymbal. But you still get brightness off of the stick, but when you hit it, you kind of get this whoosh underneath it that comes from the cymbal being stiff, but not too hard on the top surface. So sometimes, if I want a harder, brighter stick sound, I'll do some lathing, and then I'll bring the cymbal back to the anvil. Very rarely do I do this, but I'll bring it back to the anvil and just do one pass back on top to harden that surface back up. So as the cymbal's getting thinner, you're not losing brightness on the stick, and you're not losing that presence and making it too soft and gongy. But I did want just a little bit of that softness, just from what I was hearing on AT's cymbal. Slightly brittle, high-pitched stick. In brackets I put woody tone versus a pingy tone, and a balance between the wood and the ping. So I didn't want it to be too much of either, like I mentioned before. Smoky and bright. A lot of these things are kind of opposites, so that it was a delicate balance finding a way to get this cymbal. So it was high profile, a lot of bell integration, and fairly thin to get that smoky quality out of it. But I wanted to maintain the brightness by making it stiff and making sure that, like I was talking about before, that the stick didn't lose. The stick was able to activate the smoke underneath, but without losing that zing up top. And this is an interesting note too. You have to think about how the person whose cymbal you're doing a tribute to, you have to think about how they play the cymbal too. So I wrote here, AT plays hard. Cymbals need to be strong so they don't wash out. There's the comment about the stiffness as well. And when you have a bright stick, but you want a little bit of that give to get the cymbal to spread out nice and evenly, if you have a hard surface of a cymbal, that spread underneath the stick can come from the volume that you're playing at. So there's so many aspects to the sound that you're hearing, and how to go about recreating it, or like I said before, how to go about just buying a cymbal. If you're talking to an independent cymbalsmith, or if you're just over at a music store and you're trying to find out what you want, and you're asking the guy in the drum department questions about what he thinks about what you should get. Hopefully these notes and some of the words that I used and stuff will give you an insight into what to listen for, what to ask for, and it'll also just help you identify what you actually like. So being able to qualify those similarities between all the cymbals that you like can really help to drive your sound forward and make sure that you're dialing in exactly what you want. But yeah, this video ended up being a little longer than I thought it was going to be, just like every video I make. But hopefully it's interesting. Hopefully there's a little bit of insight in here that people can use. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at any time. I love to talk about cymbals, obviously. So hope everybody's doing well, and happy shedding.